So let's go ahead and optimize this model. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a few more edges across this model. We're going to try to get rid of the, this polygon here that just has way too many vertices, because for the most part, what we really only want is we only want polygons that only have 1, 2, 3, and 4 polygons, or vertices per polygon. And of course, the reason being is that when you subdivide something, you notice that all these polygons are subdividing nicely, and this one is for the most part as well, but the more complex a polygon gets, the less predictable it will be, and if you go ahead and export it to another application, you don't know how it's going to export. So let's go ahead and just clean that all up. So what we have here is, first of all, let's go ahead and just press tab and look at how our model looks. Well, right now, the first thing I'll notice between my other hammer, my reference hammer, is that this has a sharper edge here, and this one has a much more curved kind of edge. So in order for us to sharpen this up, what we need to do is we need to just go ahead and just go into edge mode, and I want to add more edges across here. So let's just go ahead and just do something like that, and add a loop slice. And now you'll see that we have a much sharper edge here and looks a lot nicer. Okay, next up, what I will want to do is I will want to add another edge loop that will go all the way across here, just to once again sharpen up that angle. So I'm just going to want to sharpen up this right here. I don't want it to be so curved across here. You'll notice that this is a much sharper angle. So if I add another edge loop here, just to that very corner, it's going to be much sharper. So let's go ahead and just do that. And you also have to make sure that when you're doing this, is that you're selecting all the edges one after another. If I, for example, just very quickly, go over like that, and you'll notice that I skipped one edge here, and then I go ahead and just use loop slice, you'll notice one thing. Well, I skipped this edge, first of all, and the result was like this. Well, what if I go ahead and just select very quickly and then add an edge, and then I loop slice? You'll notice once again that the connection hasn't been made properly. So when you're selecting stuff in Modo, you always have to make sure that the order is nice and clean and, well, in order. Now I know that in the beginning when I started modeling with Modo, this really got me a number of times, and it drove me nuts, but it is the way it works. So that's one rule you just have to follow. So let's go ahead and just use the loop slice tool, and let's drag it over to here. And now if I go ahead and just use the tab, you'll notice that this angle here is very sharp, and it's still not very sharp across here. But of course, the reason being is that there's no edge loop that goes all the way across here. So you know what? Let's go ahead and just use the loop slice tool. Actually, you know what? Now I'm just going to work the same way I always do. So my edge slice tool never has inside polygon turned on, so I'm just going to go ahead and just select that and add some geometry here, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and just add the geometry in manually. And of course, all I'm doing right now is I'm just using the edge slice tool. So that's under mesh edit, edge slice right there. Okay, so now if I go ahead and press tab, you will now notice that my corner here is very sharp and very nice looking. Okay, awesome. So next up, what I want to take care of is, you'll notice that right here I get some slight curvature, and then it goes into a straight line more or less. And then of course this whole thing is straight up as well. Well, my hammer here is nice and curvy. Now this could be fine, I could pretty much just model it like that, but you know what, I'm just going to go by the reference. So first of all, I'm going to want to take these edges and, well, unsubdivide my model, and I'm going to take these edges here, and I'm just going to go to edge, slide, and I'm just going to slide these edges up until the point where they more or less meet up with this edge right here. So next up, I'm going to take these edges here, and I'm going to move them forward. I'm going to take these ones here, and I'm going to move them backwards. Of course, the reason why I wanted to do that is because now if I have some empty space here, if I now unsubdivide my model, you'll notice that I have a much straighter line here. Now I do need to move some of this a little frontwards. So let's do that. But the one thing I'll notice is that right now it's almost like it goes in over here and it's not straight, so I don't really like that. So let's go ahead and just straighten it up without actually having any kind of subdivision applied to my model. So this is more or less straight. So you know what, let's just go ahead and just select these polygons. So I'm middle clicking and selecting these polygons here. And I also have to make sure that this polygon here is not selected. And of course the reason being is that if I go ahead and just scale this down, I'm scaling it down on the X, by the way. I'm going to want to make sure that this entire plane is flat. If I had included this polygon and I scaled, what would happen is something like this. And that's not the result I want. Okay, so we have a flat plane, that's all good. That's all set up. So now if I go ahead and just tab, I have something like that, which is, you know, it matches my reference pretty closely. Now next up, I want to make sure that I take these vertices here and I pull them out a little bit more out, where it's like that. So let's select this and let's move it along like so. And then let's move this inside and take this and just move it to the side. Now at this point in time, moving things to the side is not going to change the overall curvature here, but if I go ahead and just move it anywhere on the Y or X, it is going to in fact change the curvature. As you see, it's no longer following the curve. But if I just move it on Z, the plane is still maintained perfectly. So all I'm really wanting to do is I just want to make sure that these lines here, you know, the inside here is getting closer and closer as it goes. And of course I want these points to get further. Basically what I want is I want for this to be close and this to be a little bit further out. So let's go ahead and just select that and move it along like that. Like that. Okay, that's perfect. So let's go ahead and just unsubdivide. We get something like that. Nice. Now, next up, also, one thing that I should point out is that one thing you'll notice is that if I have a nail in here, in this portion of the hammer, I have to make sure that there is a somewhat of a curve in here. And right now I sort of have that, but it's not perfect. So let's go ahead and create it. So I'm just going to manually model this in. You know, very simply, just going to make sure I just model it in. So I'm just going to manually move vertices around. And of course that's a little bit much. But again, I'm just wanting to look at the angles that I have. You know, right now I have a nice kind of curve along here. I just have to move this point down and now I'm going to get a nicer curve. So always make sure that you look at your models from multiple angles at all times and that you're respecting the curvature of the entire surface of your models. That's probably the number one thing that you really have to pay attention to. It's the overall curvature of your models. Okay. So that's not looking too bad. We have the entire shape more or less knocked in. The next thing that I might want to do is I might want to merge both these things together. There's still a polygon here that I don't like. If I unsubdivide and I select this, you'll notice that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices. I don't like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and just select one of these here. Just going to merge it in with this thing here. If I subdivide, it still looks fine all the way across here. So, okay, so that's pretty much done. Next up, I'm going to merge this piece and this piece together. So let's go ahead and just select this by double clicking. I'm going to then cut this object out and merge it in with this here. Now I could have done it another way where I could have just double clicked both of these. So double click, shift and press, or hold shift and then double click on this, cut it out and put it in a different model altogether. And of course the reason why I wanted to do that is because I can just work on this one portion of the model only and not have to worry about anything else. So I have also I'm going to also make sure that I delete this half of the model here. And in order for me to delete this polygon, if I now, take a look at this polygon. Basically right now what I have is this model is being made symmetrical by this instance here. And considering that this polygon is actually crossing over to the other side, it's also being mirrored by the instance here. So there's two polygons over this one area. So what I want to do is I want to just go ahead and split this in half, as I did, and just delete this one polygon here. And now you'll notice that our flickering has disappeared. Just going to go ahead and just split this down the center. Now, whenever, actually I should probably note this, is that whenever you're using edge slice, like this, and you have a percentage that's being displayed over here, whatever vertex you have actually selected, what you can do is if you look at the position over in the tool properties, you'll notice that the position is changing. Well, right now I have this vertex selected and it's telling me that it's 52.5. Well, I can actually change this to 50% and then press enter. And now I will have made a slice that's exactly in the center. So I can go ahead and just do something like that. And I can just use the tool again and again until I have closed it off entirely. Okay, perfect. So next up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just create an edge loop around here so that I can merge it with, these two pieces together. Well, if I look at this model here, if I just select some of these edges, if I select, for example, this polygon here, you'll notice that there's a vertex right here. So I can just go ahead and just reuse some of the geometry without actually having to split anything. So I'm just going to middle click and select that vertex in there, and I'm going to move it up. And first thing you notice is that there's an edge now running across here. Perfect. Next up, I'm going to want to create an edge from here to here on this model. So I'm just going to go ahead and just use edge slice. I'm going to start from here, draw a point over here, then I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to draw a point all the way to here. And the thing is, you don't have to be exact, and it would probably be better if you just go ahead and just move some of this slightly up so that it's not interfering with this geometry here. And go ahead and just do this all the way around. Like that. Now we are going to have a slight problem with this section right here. And of course the reason being is that there's just too many polygons and vertices in here. That's perfectly okay, because if you notice, we have an edge here, we have an edge here, and we have a few more in here. Well, you know what I could do now? Is I could easily go ahead and just delete some of this geometry in here. As you see right now, me doing that. I'm just going to select all of that. I'm going to delete. And now I'm going to go ahead and just choose this edge. I'm going to press backspace. And now you'll notice that there's just one edge here, and like that. What I can do now is I can just go ahead and just select this one point here, just left click and select this vertex, left click and select this vertex. And because I selected this one first and this one second, if I now go into vertex and merge, one thing you'll notice is that that vertex, one of them will snap to the other. Now if I did it the other way, where I selected this one first and this one second, and use merge, well, I guess it doesn't do it like that. Anyways, let's go ahead and just use merge. Or join. I think one of these tools works that way. Anyways, select this one first, select this one second, use join, and it was the join tool that worked like that, not the vertex merge. So anyways, we have something like this. One thing I might want to do is I might want to go ahead and just select this vertex here, move it back so that there's a more or less a cylindrical shape all the way across here, or you know, kind of a cleaner shape, I guess. Okay, so we have something like this. That's very nice. And now we have to replicate this on this object here, on the actual head. So let's go ahead and just start splitting the same way that I did it with the other portion of the model. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start splitting across here. Like so. Oops. Like that. Perfect. Now, the reason why I'm leaving some room in here is because, and actually, you know what I should probably do is I should probably just go ahead and just zoom in as close as possible to this section here and just rotate until, of course, I see the inside of my model. And first thing we'll notice is that there is no polygon here, which is perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and just select these polygons now. And go ahead and just press delete to delete that. And next up, I'm just going to go ahead and just select these edges like that. And I'm going to use the bridge tool. So the bridge tool is under duplicate bridge, and I think it also exists under polygon bridge, and it does. All right, perfect. So this portion of our hammer is merged. If I go ahead and just use the tab tool, you'll notice that it in fact has subdivided. Perfect. And the next thing I have to work on is I have to, if I look at this hammer here, you'll notice that there's a sharp edge here, and then there's, you know, it's a flat shape, and then you have kind of a nice fall off all the way out. So that's what I want to do here. Now, of course, if I subdivide this model, you'll notice that there's a kind of a clean ease in and out. What I want to do is I want to add more edges across here, all the way up here, to tighten up this corner. So I'm just going to do the same thing across here, and I'll bring this edge up here. And now because of the fact that there's more geometry here and less here, if I subdivide, you'll notice that I have in fact replicated a similar effect here, where it's flat and then it kind of eases out and does that. Now, one thing I still don't really like is the fact that this hammer head is, you know, it's a little too short. So I'm just going to pull it out like so. And once again, if I subdivide, I have an effect like this. Now, this hammer right now isn't perfect. I mean, for example, I have this edge, you know, running down and then out like that. You know what? For stuff like that, I could easily just use something like, ooh, I don't know, maybe I can just go to deform and I can just use the smooth tool. And I can try to just drag and smooth out some of this. And of course, if I try smoothing again, I'm going to get a much more pleasant kind of result here. Now again, this hammer isn't exactly, you know, they're not exactly the same, but more or less the, you know, the methods that I went about modeling both are pretty much exactly the same. So, you know, don't worry if I'm not using the exact same methods. Now, I did something here that I don't really like to do. Now, I created a triangle, but sometimes it's okay. In this case, I really don't mind. Okay, so we have our hammer pretty much finished. I mean, the only thing I really have to do is I just have to take this portion of the hammer and just mirror it over. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just select my instance that I have created earlier. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go ahead and just go to change type. I'm going to go to mesh instead of mesh instance. And of course now you'll notice that my model is, I can actually select the other side of the model and you know, affect it. So if I go ahead and just take this new mesh, and if I go ahead and just middle click and select all the way across it, and then go to Control X to cut that portion out, and then select this part here and Control V, then what we get, and of course what actually happened is because it mirrored the model earlier as an instance, it wasn't being displayed properly. So let's just go ahead and just double click on this and let's flip it. So press F and we have something like this. All right, so we have our model mirrored, but the one thing it doesn't still do is it's not welded across here, which is why we have this sharp line. So what we have to do is we have to just go ahead and just go into polygon as we select this entire model here. And what we want to do is we want to merge these vertices. So let's go ahead and just go to vertex menu here, merge, and let's left click and drag to the left until the distance becomes 0. And now you notice that these polygons have in fact disappeared. Let's go ahead and drop the tool by pressing the Q button. And now if we subdivide, you'll notice that I have a nice clean cylindrical shape here. The hammer looks very nice and clean. And we can in fact take this entire model here, the head, I can cut that and paste it into this piece here. Select this, press tab, and of course now the entire model is in fact done. I think. Nope. I still have to, what I have to do still is I have to go ahead and just cut more edges here to tighten up some corners. Like that. And again, all I'm doing is I'm just selecting an edge, selecting an edge ring, and then I'm just tightening in some corners. So now I like this a lot more. And she's done. That's it. That's how you model a hammer. I mean, it's very easy. Basically, all I did is I just kept reusing a cylindrical shape. I flattened some pieces out, beveled out. I used the bend deformer. At the same time, I used the fall-off cylinder, or you could have used radial just as well. And, I affected the model a few times. And, then you just merge the pieces together. But yeah, by using a very primitive cylinder, I can easily bevel shapes out, duplicate, and, offset, and then bevel outwards in a different way. And then, just model it around, and until you of course reach the result that you're looking for. So the hammer's done. Cheers.